How many times have you felt like you were at your breaking point? As if invisible walls were closing in around you, squeezing the breath out of your chest, as if every step forward was harder than the last, and each new day brought another uphill battle just to remain standing. Maybe it's hard to even put into words what you're going through. Maybe you don't even have the strength to try. So you just keep moving, because stopping seems to hurt even more. You look around at your life and feel like everything you've built is slowly crumbling in front of you. The job that once felt secure is now filled with uncertainty. The health you used to take for granted now brings anxiety. That person you trusted suddenly feels like a stranger. And within you grows a silent emptiness, a gnawing sense of being abandoned, of being forgotten by God. But listen closely, you are not being ruined. You are being remade. In the quiet, in the dark, in places no one can see. God is shaping something within you that will sustain you in the places He's already prepared for your feet. It may feel like punishment, but it's actually His protection. It might look like loneliness, but it's refinement. Because the Lord never builds something great on shaky ground. Sometimes, He must take us apart on the inside before lifting us up again, this time, the right way, His way. Do you realize what Jesus experienced during those 30 silent years? No crowds, no miracles, no signs, just ordinary days, hidden moments, stillness. And it was within that quiet obscurity that God was preparing the heart that would bear the weight of the cross. Maybe what you now call a desert, God is calling a foundation. You're ready to soar, but is still laying roots. Because He knows the winds will come. And without deep roots, you'll be swept away. So yes, this silence stings. But it also heals. It strips away the surface layers. It crushes pride, dissolves ego, dismantles your hurry, and teaches what no success ever could, how to rely completely. Remember the phoenix, that mythical creature that rises anew from its ashes. That's often how God works with us. He allows everything to fall into ruin, only to prove that even from dust, He can birth new life. And this isn't just poetic imagery. It's truth. It's what happened to Job, a man who lost everything, his possessions, his children, his health, even his dignity. A man who sat in the ashes and wished for death. But even in that wreckage, shattered and crushed, he could still say, "The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." And it was only after the sorrow, once the dust of his devastation had settled, that God restored Job's life twofold. Maybe this is your own moment in the ashes, when it feels like everything has been stripped away. But God hasn't left you there. He's using this time to make you stronger on the inside, to make you unshakable. Do you understand that? You are not stuck. You are being prepared. This pause is not the end. It is simply the moment before something far greater begins. And the most beautiful part, even if no one else sees what you're going through, God does. He sees every tear you silently shed. He hears every thought you've never dared to speak aloud. He knows the fear that whispers that you won't make it, that you're not enough, that you're too weary to go on. But He doesn't demand strength from you. He only asks for your trust. He wants you to surrender. To stop trying to make sense of everything and simply say, "God, I can't do this on my own anymore." Because that is where rebuilding truly begins. If you find yourself in a season of stillness, it does not mean God has turned away from you. It means He's working in places your eyes cannot yet see. Like a farmer who plants seeds and must wait, in silence, for the harvest. The ground may look unchanged for weeks, but beneath the surface, something sacred is unfolding. Roots are growing stronger. Seeds are beginning to awaken. And when they finally break through the surface, no one will guess how much had to happen in the quiet before they bloomed. So now, think carefully. How many times in your life have you been in situations that seemed hopeless, only to later realize that those very trials had to happen to move you forward into something greater? Hasn't it happened to you before? So why question it now? The very same God who upheld you yesterday is the one who holds you steady today. And if He hasn't taken you out of this season yet, it's because there's still something within it that you're meant to learn, something that will be vital for your future. Want something practical to do? Choose a moment in your day, perhaps in the morning, at lunch, or before bed, and give 5 minutes every single day, simply to sit quietly before God. Not to ask, not to complain, just to be there. And during those 5 minutes, say, "God, I'm here. Teach me in the silence." Do this for just 7 days. Only 7. And you'll begin to notice a shift. The outside world may look exactly the same, but inside, something begins to realign. Because in the stillness, God speaks in ways that only the heart can understand. And if you're still uncertain, remember what happened to Nelson Mandela. He spent 27 years behind bars. 27 years of isolation, of silence, of being forgotten. Yet within the quiet walls of that prison cell, he was shaped, strengthened, and prepared. And when he was released, he didn't come out filled with resentment. He came out a leader, with vision, with faith. And he went on to transform a nation. So now reflect, what might God be forming in you during this hidden season? Could it be that you're on the verge of the most powerful chapter of your story, and you're considering giving up just before the page turns? If you can do just one thing today, let it be this: take a deep breath. Let go of the need to be perfect. Don't try to make sense of everything right now. Just keep going. One more day, one more step, one more act of surrender. Because the God who works behind the scenes is closer than you realize. And he will show you, in his time, the reason for every tear, for every quiet night, and for every new beginning. You are not what others have said about you. You are not the hurtful words thrown your way, not the labels they placed on you, not the dismissive looks that made you feel small. You are not the mistake you once made, nor the shortcoming others keep reminding you of. You are not your father's absence, your mother's coldness, or your friend's betrayal. You are not a poor exam result, a modest wage of approximately £20,000 per year, or an empty CV. All of these may have happened to you, but none of them define who you are. Maybe you were told growing up that you were too slow, too clumsy, that you'd never amount to anything. Maybe you carried expectations that no one could possibly meet, and when you couldn't fulfill them, you began to see yourself as a burden. Maybe you've lived your whole life being compared to someone else, your sibling, the star student, the one who got it right, while you were the one who was always difficult. And those words took root. And without even noticing, you started to believe them. The cruelest part: when you listen to a lie for long enough, it starts to sound like the truth. But listen to what I'm telling you now, with every fiber of my being: you are not what happened to you. You are what God declares over your life. And do you know what he says? He says you are his child, that you are deeply loved, that you were chosen before your first breath, that you are his masterpiece, crafted with meaning, drawn with purpose. Do you truly think that a God so vast and wise would take the time to create you if you were a mistake? Do you think he would give up his own son for someone who held no worth? No, he wouldn't. But he did. He gave his son. For you. And that says everything. There's a moment in the Bible that moves me deeply, when the prophet Samuel is sent to the house of Jesse to anoint the next king of Israel. All of Jesse's sons are summoned, except one. David, the youngest, the forgotten one, just the shepherd boy. Even his father didn't believe he could be the chosen one. But God saw what no one else did. He saw the heart. While people judge by appearance, by reputation, by achievements, God looked deeper. He looked at the soul. And it was in that very boy, the one overlooked by all, that God poured out his royal anointing. Can you grasp that? Others may have passed you by, but God never has. Your value doesn't come from human approval. It comes from the blood that was poured out for you. Now take a moment and think, how many times have you held yourself back because of what others said? How many doors have you left unopened because you believed you weren't good enough? How many dreams did you tuck away because someone convinced you they were impossible? It's time to put an end to this. And here's a challenge for you. For the next 7 days, the moment you wake up, go to a mirror, look yourself straight in the eyes, and declare out loud, I am God's masterpiece. I am loved. I am forgiven. I am strong. I am needed. My past does not determine my future. Do it, even if it feels awkward, even if it feels untrue. Say it until that truth speaks louder than every lie that has echoed inside you for years. Do you know why this works? Because words carry power. The Bible says that faith comes by hearing, and that includes hearing your own voice remind you who you are in God. Maybe you've been wrestling with a label someone stuck on you when you were a child. Perhaps someone once called you stupid, lazy, or useless. Or maybe you're burdened by guilt, by a mistake that made you believe you'll be stained forever. But God doesn't work with condemnation. He works through restoration. When the woman caught in adultery was about to be stoned, Jesus looked at her and said, I do not condemn you. Then, with compassion, he told her, Go now and leave your life of sin. He didn't dismiss her sin, but neither did he define her by it. That's how he sees you too. He knows everything you've done, every thought you've had, every place you've been. And even so, he still calls you by name. And not just any name, but the name of child. Want an example of overcoming? Think of actor Jim Carrey. He grew up in severe poverty, even lived in a van with his family. At school, he was seen as odd. Many people said he would never amount to anything. But he held on to the vision he had of himself. He once wrote himself a symbolic check for approximately £8 million and dated it for future time. Years later, he received exactly that amount for a film. Not because he was perfect, but because he refused to accept the narrative others gave him. You don't need applause. You don't need anyone's approval. What you need is faith. Faith that there is something inside you the world has not yet witnessed. And that's okay. They don't need to see it yet, because the one who needs to see it already has. And that's God. The time for comparison is over. The season of hiding behind wounds has passed. Now is the time to reclaim your identity. Time to see yourself as God sees you. And if today you don't know where to begin, begin here. Close your eyes and say, "Father, show me who I am in your eyes." Just that. He will show you, because those who seek their identity in the Father never live as orphans again. You are not the mistake. You are the plan. You are the promise. You are the one for whom heaven itself moved. And while others focus on what's missing in you, God focuses on what He Himself placed within you. Because He doesn't make errors in creation. And He certainly didn't make a mistake with you. There are days when the pain tightens so much that we find ourselves asking, "Why, God? Why me?" And sometimes, it's not anger that brings the question, it's weariness. Not just physical exhaustion, but a deep soul tiredness. The kind that comes from having tried everything, prayed, cried, waited, and still seeing no change. And in that silence, a thought begins to grow. Maybe it's time to give up. But let me tell you a truth that might shift something deep inside you. The pain you are feeling today may be the very thing that brings salvation to someone else tomorrow. Have you ever thought about that? That what feels unfair today, too heavy to carry, completely senseless, could be the very thing that turns you into a living answer to someone else's suffering. The tears you're shedding now might become the bridge that leads someone to God. And this isn't just flowery talk. It's the way heaven works, turning pain into testimony. Look at Joseph's story. Betrayed by his own brothers, sold into slavery, mocked, imprisoned without cause. He lost everything: his home, his family, his freedom, his honor, everything. And yet, he held firmly to his faith. Even when everything seemed lost, God lifted him up. He was placed as the highest authority in Egypt after Pharaoh himself, and beyond that, the pain he had endured was used by God to rescue an entire nation from starvation. And do you remember what Joseph said to his brothers in the end, the very ones who had betrayed him? "You meant to harm me, but God turned it into good, to preserve the lives of many people." Can you see the depth of that? The pain you're facing now is not only about you. It carries a deeper meaning. It carries the potential to bring hope and healing to others. But to reach that point, you must keep moving forward. You have to walk through it, because only those who refuse to give up make it to the other side. How many people do you know who gave up too early, just before they saw the reason behind the pain? How many walked away halfway through, and then spent the rest of their lives wondering how things might have been if they just held on a bit longer? You might be just one step away from the life God has planned for you, but you're considering turning back because this chapter feels too heavy. But think about this. What if Jesus had walked away in Gethsemane? What if, in that moment when he was in agony, sweating blood, overwhelmed to the point of death, and he cried out, "Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me"? What if he had stopped there? What if he had said, "I can't go on"? Have you ever thought what would have happened to all of us if he had surrendered to the pain? But he didn't. He endured. And because of that, you now have access to salvation. There are people who will come to know God because of your story. Some will only believe that new beginnings are possible because they looked at your journey and saw it was real. But for that to happen, you must go through the pain. Not avoid it. Not pretend it doesn't hurt. But walk through it, hand in hand with God. Here's a hard but liberating truth. Not every miracle happens in an instant. Some miracles are born through the journey. And it's in that journey that God turns pain into healing, confusion into testimony, and tears into tools. Have you ever heard of J.K. Rowling? Before she wrote the Harry Potter series, she was a single mom, without a job, surviving on government assistance, and in the grip of deep depression. She was turned away by multiple publishers. But she didn't stop. She kept writing. She kept believing. She turned her sorrow into strength. And today, millions have been moved by her story, not just because of the books, but because of the resilience she showed when everything around her screamed defeat. How often have you hidden your suffering behind a smile, pretending all is fine because you think no one would understand what you feel? But let me tell you something, God understands. And more than that, He wants to use this pain. He wants to turn what seems like darkness into a beacon of light. Because the one who walks through the valley and comes out the other side becomes a guide for those still stumbling in the storm. So if you feel like you're at rock bottom, calling out for help and convinced no one can hear, know this, God has already heard you. And is not going to leave you there. But is not just coming to pull you out. He wants to use your story, your journey, your healing to reach others. Because when you rise, you don't rise alone. You rise for all those who will come after you. Try this. Think of someone you truly admire. Now ask yourself, did that person reach where they are without pain? Without battles? Without falling? No. What touches you most is what they overcame. And it will be the same with you. You've already triumphed over challenges that once seemed impossible. You've stood back up when others thought you never would. And still, the doubt creeps in. The temptation to give up returns. But this time, let your response be different. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? Ask, what is this for? What purpose does this pain serve? Who will this testimony help? Who will find healing, freedom, or restoration through your story? Maybe it doesn't make sense now, because you're still in the thick of it. But when you reach the end, it will all become clear. One day, you'll look back with tears in your eyes and whisper, it was worth it. Every bit of it mattered. So take a deep breath. Hold on just a little longer. Keep walking, even if your knees are raw and trembling. Because God isn't letting your suffering go to waste. He's shaping a story through it, one that will echo through generations. And when someone comes to you and says, I was ready to give up, but your journey gave me the strength to keep going, in that moment, you'll understand, every tear, every fall, every sleepless night had a deeper meaning. That's the reason you kept going. You've conquered before. You've made it through countless sleepless nights, through days when the world seemed to collapse around you, through times when pain was your only certainty, and yet, you're still here, breathing, alive. That, in itself, is evidence that you're far stronger than you think. But when the pain returns, when things don't go the way you hoped, it's easy to forget. You forget the battles you already won, the weight you've already carried, the moments when you felt like giving up and didn't. And it's in that forgetfulness that the enemy tries to sneak in, whispering lies, that this time you won't make it, that this time it's different, that this time you're too weak. But let me remind you, the same God who steadied you through the storms before is still by your side. He hasn't changed. If He lifted you once, He will lift you again. Maybe right now, your marriage is going through a rough patch. Maybe you're silently battling depression. Maybe financial pressures are keeping you awake at night, bills piling up, and only about £2,000 a month to stretch across what feels like endless needs. Maybe you're mourning someone whose absence aches in every part of you. Or perhaps your pain doesn't even have a name. It just lingers, always there like a shadow. And inside, everything is screaming, I can't do this anymore. But take a moment. Remember when you said those exact words before? When you truly believed you wouldn't survive. And yet, here you are. That's not coincidence. That's grace. That's purpose. That's God quietly reminding you that when He walks beside you, no ending is truly the end. It's simply a new beginning wrapped in sorrow. Because He is the master of rebuilding broken lives right at the place they crumbled. Think of Peter, the disciple who denied knowing Jesus, not once, not twice, but 3 times. This wasn't a stranger, it was the one who had promised to stay loyal to the end. The close friend, the devoted follower. And yet, in Jesus' darkest hour, He denied Him. But even so, Jesus chose Peter to be the rock on which the church was built. Peter was the one who stood up and preached at Pentecost. He became a powerful voice in spreading the gospel. Why? Because God doesn't judge you by your worst moment. He looks at who you can become when you choose to rise after you've fallen. You're hard on yourself, aren't you? You criticize yourself for feeling overwhelmed, for not being strong every day, for entertaining thoughts of giving up. But God never demanded perfection from you. He only asks for trust. That even while afraid, you'll keep moving. That even in tears, you'll crawl forward if you have to. In God's kingdom, perseverance isn't a measure of physical strength, it's the proof of your faith. Need an example? Think about Michael Jordan. Today, is one of the greatest athletes of all time. But back in school, he was cut from a basketball team. They said he wasn't good enough. That could have been the end. But instead of quitting, he worked harder, trained longer, believed deeper. That choice changed everything. He didn't become great because he never failed. He became great because he refused to stop trying. Now ask yourself, how many times has God protected you without your knowledge? That crash that almost happened but didn't. That reckless choice you nearly made but somehow avoided. That door that slammed shut, breaking your heart at the time, but later you realized it was a blessing. If God has been taking care of the invisible details all along, what makes you think He won't handle the pain you're facing now? Try this. Grab a sheet of paper and write down 5 moments in your life when you truly believed you couldn't make it through. They could be from your childhood, your teenage years, or even yesterday. And beside it, write down how you overcame it, what you discovered, what God revealed to you afterwards. Keep that page safe. And whenever doubt dares to return, read it aloud. It will remind you that you've conquered before, and you will conquer again. And if today, all you can manage is to breathe, then breathe. If all that remains in you is a whispered prayer, then whisper. God does not measure the depth of your faith by the sophistication of your words, but by the truthfulness of your heart. He understands when you've run out of things to say. He collects your tears as silent prayers. He speaks the language of your weeping. It's completely human to feel fear, but you have no permission to abandon the purpose God has placed upon your life. There are people who will be touched by your story of triumph. They are waiting to hear your "I made it." Today may feel like the end, but it is merely another page, and the author of your story has not finished writing. So do not close the book. Do not put down the pen. Do not interrupt a tale that still has beautiful chapters waiting to unfold. What God has set aside for you is not over yet. And if the victory hasn't arrived, it means He is still shaping something far greater than your current understanding can grasp. You've overcome in the past, and you will rise again. Because anyone who has God in the boat may face storms, but will never be swallowed by the sea. You haven't come this far to give up now. You've made it here because you are strong enough to carry on, even when everything screams otherwise. Even when your own thoughts convince you it's not possible. Because somewhere deep inside, there is still a flicker of faith, small, but alive. And that is exactly where God will move. You're still here, still drawing breath, still listening to these words. That is not by accident. It is part of the plan. God has brought you to this very moment to whisper a truth, gentle, yet mighty. You are not alone. You never were. Even during the darkest nights, even in the quietest tears, even in the muffled cries against your pillow. He was there, and He still is, waiting for your yes, waiting for you to believe once more, waiting for you to rise, even if it's on shaky legs. Because to God, one trembling step of faith is more precious than 1,000 strides towards nowhere. Don't give up now, because what lies beyond this pain is something no eyes have seen, no ears have heard, and no heart has ever imagined. You were made to endure. You were made to overcome. You were made to leave a lasting imprint in this world. And if today you can do just one thing, let it be to keep going. Just for today. Just one more step. Just one more prayer. Just one more tear offered to God, because all of heaven is cheering for you. And so am I.